for me as a musician, I think it's also important to know our role in life, in society, and also connected to the politics, to the history. And that's my, not only wish, but my will to show history with music, through music, and also make a statement how we want to live as musicians.
Today we're in the Bavarian town of Bad Kissingen, one of Europe's most fashionable bathing and drinking spas in the 19th century. A UNESCO World Heritage Site, its architecture and gardens are as popular today as its thermal baths. It's here that we talk with pianist Annika Treutler. She is passionate about keeping alive the memory of Jewish composer Viktor Ullmann, who before he was deported to Auschwitz and killed, created over 20 works in the ghetto of Theresienstadt. Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation on very short notice.
Yes, it's a pleasure.
Just yesterday we heard your performance together with Daniel Müller-Schott. When I heard you and when I witnessed your joy in music making, I said, we have to have a conversation with you. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
What is it like working with Daniel? It seemed that when you walked out, it was just a zone of radiance and joy in sharing music.
When I enter the stage with Daniel, I always feel a certain freedom. So even if there are good rehearsals and serious talks about the music, we come on stage and it's a space where we feel things and energy, and then also the interpretation shifts, and so that feels very inspiring. And I think it's only possible with people you actually know very well as a human as well. It's interesting. We have exactly this balance of reacting and then at the same time being active ourselves. And it's a constant dialogue with chamber music partners, whoever it is. I think the foundation is a good preparation for myself, and then basically forgetting about everything I want to do myself, but like 100% being open to whoever you play with and listen. I think the most important is listening in general in music. Listening and then having a chance to feel in advance what's going to happen. And that's something I adore in this musical dialogue with chamber music partners. That you can so sensitively feel every emotion, every stress on stage, even differences between rehearsals and stage, and also feel the daily mood, and all that comes together in this performance in like just 3 notes, and you can feel if it's going that way or that way, and it's a miracle of performances, right? So it's never the same, and it's always created in the moment.
Has it ever happened to you that you're on stage with a colleague who seems to be quite nervous, and then you feel like you can in this moment be a psychologist of sorts and try to radiate good, calm energy? Is that part of the collaborative picture?
I would say absolutely yes. And not even if it's a very nervous moment, or sometimes someone is very tired, sometimes it can be someone is very nervous and he needs just support. But I think there are these energies on stage, and I love them because I love psychology as well. So that's definitely a part which I like about sharing music as energy. And as I said, always thinking ahead and see what someone needs. And I also like to be in this supportive role somehow, yeah. And it's, I think you need to be open to receive those energies as well. Yeah, but it happened to me, and it's, I hope I can support my musical partners in that sense, yeah.
And is it sometimes the other way around too? For you as the pianist, let's say you're with a cellist and you're having a difficult day, do you ever find some supportive energy from them?
I do, but again, it's a matter when I'm very stressed, am I open enough to receive, right? So hearing us talk, it's all a matter of being open and flexible in that sense, right?
In terms of the precision of the craft, you could basically take this performance and release it onto CD, and yet, I sensed that you were taking great risks interpretively, and I felt that you were very free. Aren't those completely opposite ends of the spectrum?
I mean, I can only say to this maybe that for me it's always important to be in the moment and being like taking all the risks. And of course you can only take the risks if you have a good stability.
How about reaching that level of consistency? It's one thing to reach for it and achieve it consistently in the practice room. It's another thing to find the focus and the clarity to do the same on stage. What would you say to a young musician, or to me who's also trying to work on this, if I want to reach towards this level of consistency?
You have to go through moments where it maybe doesn't work, maybe where you don't feel well with yourself. What we do is very much connected to our personal life as well, our past experiences as well. If we have bad experience, how do we deal with this? So I think it's a matter of growing up in that sense as a human and as a pianist, as it's very connected. Plus just playing and I see it, everything I do basically as a learning. Don't focus on what can go wrong, but focus on the music, for example. And what helped me a lot as well is there's this quote of Debussy who said that as an interpreter we are like a medium where the music flows. Yes, and for example, years ago I felt a bit stuck myself, and I read that, and that was really it influenced me a lot, because I thought, okay, if I feel this stuck, suddenly I make it about myself. But it's not about myself. It's about the music. But if I block it with my stress, I lost before I go on stage, right? So this is a way of opening up and letting the flow in, basically, and then the music can grow. And it's not about my stress. Right? Yeah.
So we've talked about the ease and the confidence, but I also noticed, as for me, my perception, this unbelievably radiating joy. And I think the only other musician I've seen project quite to that extent is perhaps Cecilia Bartoli. Was this joy always part of your way of being in this life?
Way of being in this life. Maybe. I mean, I love the let's say the brightness of life and the colorfulness, and I try to embrace everything there is, and also connect it to human. I love people, and I love to interact and having good talks, for example. And I would say, connected to the piano, I was lucky that I also had teachers who were always supportive. They never ever, there was not only one who was destructive in a way. And I had a teacher, for example, when I was in, I think I would say in an age where it's most important, which is between 10 and 16. And she was basically the brightest person I've ever seen. So it was always this huge smile. And whenever I had lessons with her, we also talked a lot. So there was a lot of inspiration already from talking to her, and she told me stories. And it was about the whole package of being a human and musician. And whenever I came home, I wanted to immediately continue practicing. So, and luckily my parents are musicians, but they never took the joy from me.
I want to switch gears a little bit and ask about the Viktor Ullmann concerto. You received the Opus Classic Award for this. I think most people don't know this work, or they might not even know the composer. So tell me a little bit about this work and the composer and why this was so important to you.
That's a huge topic. I try to start somewhere. So who's Viktor Ullmann? He's an Austrian composer who was born in 1898. And his life was destroyed and ended by the Germans in the Second World War. And he was in a transport to Auschwitz, and he died on the 18th of October 1944. And his life and his work is very special because he managed as well to compose in all these difficult stages at the end of his life. So he was, before he died, he was in Theresienstadt in the ghetto from 42, and he was able to compose there. So Theresienstadt was this ghetto where they used it as they use the pictures of, we have a cultural life here, it's not that bad at all. And so the regime tried to show the world that it's not bad what they're doing. So there was a cultural life. And Viktor Ullmann even wrote, he was the music critic of the cultural program there. So there are the reports. And it's interesting also to read these critics as we can read the programs, what they played. And himself, he composed... So he composed, for example, 7 piano sonatas as well, and he composed 4 in advance when he was living in Prague, and then he composed 3 other sonatas in Theresienstadt in the Bibliothek with paper where you can compose the music, but that was forbidden. But he was covered by some people, so he was actually able to compose, and he was convinced he needs to bring the music to Auschwitz. But friends, luckily, saved these scores and said, no, just leave it with us. And he went to Auschwitz, he died. And because of this friend, we have still the music. And that's that's a part of Ullmann's life. And the piano concerto I recorded, I also recorded 2 sonatas. One of them was the last piece he wrote he composed in Theresienstadt. But the piano concerto was composed earlier in the years in Prague. And he dedicated the piece to a young pianist. His name is Giulietta Rani. And she was beginning of her 30s. Very talented, very promising pianist, obviously technically wonderful. And so what touches me a lot is I'm basically in her age now, and her life ended as well in Auschwitz, and the plan was that she premiered the piece in Theresienstadt, but it never came to that. So that's the story of the piano concerto, and you asking me what it means to me. I grew up in Germany. I have basically also like a German education in the piano, you could say. And being a German, I do strongly live with the history as well, and feel a lot of responsibility. And for me as a musician, I think it's also important to know our role in life, in society, and also connected to the politics, to the history. And that's my, not only wish, but my will, to show history with music, through music, and also make a statement how we want to live as musicians. How do we want to live in a society? So we tell history basically for building a better future. So that's like actually a big topic, and it comes from Ullmann and ends up in a whole universe of questions for society. Yeah.
And what was the response to this music from the audience and you playing it as a German?
There was a huge response, especially as we also built a whole education project around it. So what we did was touring through schools in Germany with a group of 4 people. I had a French Cypriotic singer, a Russian cellist, and a Spanish clarinetist. And we as a quartet, having completely different backgrounds, we went to different schools in Germany, different ages, but all around in the teenage years. And we wanted to, first of all, bring the music from that time, from the Second World War, not only Ullmann, but also, let's say, the Moonlight Serenade, which was obviously played for the soldiers to motivate them. So telling them the history, telling them the backgrounds of that music, playing the music, opening their emotions, it was incredible what we discovered and what we experienced. So there was no gap, as we have sometimes, you know, that in concert halls, even if we share a lot of emotions, it's still, we have this construct of a classical concert. And we went to these schools and literally, and not exaggerating, we shared tears together with young pupils, which are not connected at all to the classical music world. And basically, I think that's the power of music. And it's not only that there's an emotional side, but through this emotional side, we can tell history. We can tell, we can get to the very fundamental questions in life. And that was life-changing for all of us, and still is a part of me, which I don't want to miss. And actually, I really would love to discover more, because why are we musicians? You know, it's also... everyone knows it in the pandemic. It was a huge question. Where are we in society? Are we relevant or not? So there are many questions, and we're coming through this basically eye of a needle, and it opened up so many questions. And coming back to this ostracized music, which Viktor Ullmann's music is called, and many others, there's a huge part of music history which was it was just gone through history, and it needs an extra effort to actually bring it back to the concert halls, and it's just really good music which should be equal to other composers, and so there are many points why I am engaging in that, and I would not stop.
And finally, Annika, what gives you excitement and joy in looking towards your musical future?
I mean, I don't know how the future will be. I hope I can learn more, discover more, getting deeper into topics like that, what I was just telling you, sharing intense musical moments wherever they would be, and reaching. I love to reach younger people with music, and I experience that it's possible. And then I see a future for the classical music world itself, but also for me. Yeah, and I love teaching. So it's also these moments where you feel like you can reach a young person and really help and support. That's something I really love. Yeah.
Annika, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation and for sharing your music.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.